This is Maury of YAHUSHA. Have you ever been on the highway and was pulled over by the highway patrol for not wearing a seatbelt? You look in the rearview mirror. You see the lights. Your heart starts pumping. So you get the seatbelt and you try to pull it over real slow in one seamless movement and snap it into the slot. But it's too late. He saw you already, and he pulls you over and gives you a fine. Well, here's my confession of my transgression. The Israelite brothers caught me riding dirty, the Fringe Patrol. I went out to the store. I didn't have on my fringes. I had on sweatpants. And boy, they went off. They gave me a massive fine in my mind. But I understand some things that they don't. And I asked them one question 4 times before they answered. The question was, am I condemned because I don't have on my fringe? Finally, they answered and said, if you repent. And I said, well, there you have it then. The next time I come out, I'll have on my fringe. I have a massive lesson for you today about fringes. And yes, they are in the law. Fringes are for a reason. You are to look upon them and remember that you are to keep the law. Let's begin. B'madbar, you would say Numbers, chapter 15, verse 38. This is one of the citations that the Fringe Patrol gave me when they pulled me over. Look to the left. We have the Paleo-Hebrew, 585 years before the MASHAYAH came on the earth. 38. Speak unto the children of YAHUSHA. It doesn't say children. It says sons. Look to the left. Circle on top. All Banya. Strong shepherds. Sons. See the check mark? Of YAHUSHA. Why does it just say sons? Because the sons were responsible to teach their family. And bid them that they make them fringes. Come down to the 4th line. You'll see underlined the word tijah, tizat. In the borders, come down to the 5th line, kanapyah, of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put upon the fringe tijah, tijat. See the 7th line, 2nd from the bottom, of the borders of ribbon. The word for ribbon is pat, y'all. On the bottom, you see it? First word, Hebrew reads from right to left. Of blue. Here's the word for blue. Takalat. Okay, so here's the command. This is what sets us apart from everyone else on earth. The ribbon of blue. Let's examine the Strong's Concordance. The KJV translates Strong's H6734 in the following manner. Fringe, 3 times. Lock, 1 time. Outline of biblical usage. Fringe, tassel, lock. Strong's definitions. Here's the word. Tijah, tizat. It's feminine of H6731, a floral or wing-like projection. In other words, a forelock of hair, a tassel, fringe, lock. So your fringes should have a lock in them. The KJV translates Strong's H3671 in the following manner: wing, skirt, borders, corners, ends, feathered, sort, winged, miscellaneous, 8 time. Outline of biblical usage: wing, extremity, edge, winged, border, corner, skirt, wing, extremity, a skirt, corner of the garment. Strong's definitions. Here's the word kanap. In the ancient text is kanapyah, from H3670, an edge or extremity, specifically of a bird or army, a wing, of a garment or bed clothing, a flap of the earth, a quarter, of a building, a pinnacle, bird, border, corner, end, feathered, flying, one another, overspreading, quarters, skirt, sort, uttermost part, winged. There's a lot of words that you can use for this definition. We're going to use for this kanapyah, wing. Keep that in mind. The KJV translates Strong's H8504 in the following manner: blue, 50 times. Outline of biblical usage. Look at what it's saying here. Violet? I thought you said blue. Violet stuff, violet thread, violet stuff or fabric. Twat. When it says twat, that means you can look deeper into this subject. Blue. Covering spectrum from brilliant red through deep purple. Strong's definitions. Here's the word takalat, probably from H7827, the cerulean muscle. In other words, the color violet, obtained therefrom or stuff dyed therewith. Does it mean to make blue? Are they mixing the colors in order for us to obtain this takalat? We shall see. Let's look at the next passage. There's only 2 in Torah that speaks of you wearing fringes. Debayam, you would say Deuteronomy chapter 22 verse 12. Again, we have the ancient text towards the left and the translation on the right. 12. You shall make you fringes. Here's the word kanaput. Upon the 4 quarters. Here's the word for 4. A rabbah of your vesture wherewith you cover yourself. There's something wrong here. It's inverted. Kanaput comes before a rabbah. Remember, you're reading a translation. Look at the ancient text. What comes first? Hebrew reads from right to left. Look at the first word underlined. A rabbah. What does that mean? 4. Look at the next word. Kanaput. What does that mean? Fringes. Okay, so let's read it again in the proper order. You shall make 4 fringes of your vesture wherewith you cover yourself. Okay, I put you through all of this education just so that you can understand what you're going to see next. Here's the Greeks, 1200 BCE. They have on fringes. Did you know that fringes were worldwide? They were a fashion statement. The Greeks had them on. Here's a woman wearing a fringed tunic, 170 to 200 CE. Look at the image. They were a fashion statement. Here we have Augustus, the emperor, wearing a fringed paladumentum, 12 to 10 BCE. Look at that. Even the Romans wore fringes. Here's the Egyptians. Look at her garment. She has fringes coming straight down from under her wing. Armpit, remember? Wing, winged on your garment. So this is what it means. You should have fringes that come from under your armpit, that come straight down the side. This is a fashion statement all over the world. Here's some men on the walls in Egypt that were taken captive. Look at their garments. The second one looks like he has a gold chain on his neck. They look like some form of royalty. Their garments and their colors are magnificent. Who is known in the Bible for wearing colorful and beautiful garments? The children of YAHUSHA. Remember Joseph, YAHUSHA? His father made for him a beautiful garment, and his brothers were jealous. Okay, the children of YAHUSHA were in the land of Egypt for 215 years before the Exodus. When YAHUSHA, Joseph, died, there arose a Pharaoh that knew not YAHUSHA, and he took the children of YAHUSHA captive. Is this the image of that captivity in the land of Egypt? Look on the bottom. They have fringes. The second one, and the fourth one, they have fringes on the borders of their garment. Different than what we know of the rest of the world, because everyone wore them. Here we have MASHAYAH and Aharon. They came to deliver the children of YAHUSHA out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. On the left is a recreation. I want you to see something. On the right is the original. Look at their faces. Look at their color. They're not white. MASHAYAH is about the color of the first goat, and Aharon is the color almost of the second goat. They both have afros, and the images right next to MASHAYAH's afro tells you who he is. Okay, look at his garment. Spectacular. Look at the fringe under the wing. So you see, this was popular. At this time, they were leaving the land of Egypt. They hadn't received the law as of yet. Here's another image, and this image is going to tell the story. This image is from the tomb of Seti I, the Book of Gates, 4th Division, 5th hour. On the right is the original, and on the left is the recreation. I want you to pay attention to the one that is called the Amu. Do you know that that's what they have on the walls in Egypt for MASHAYAH and Aharon? They are the Amu. What does Amu mean? Those who come from the Near East, not Middle East, Near East. What is the Near East to Egypt? Canaan. Look at his garment. something like a Aharon's, right? Look on the bottom. He's got 4 fringes, 4 corners. Look at the color. Is that takalat? This is the closest that we can come to knowing what the color looks like. Look to the right, to the original image. You see an arrow there pointed at a man's head? That's the Amu. Look above his head. It tells a story. See the 2 birds there? Okay, look at his face. Even though it's worn off, but you can see the top of his head, he's brown. On the bottom, it's worn out, the color. Look at the fringes. You can barely see them. It's about 3,500 years ago. You can barely see these fringes. But when you look to the left, they brought him out in brilliant color. So this is the closest that we can get to knowing what takalat would look like. Here's a recreation of the Amu. What happened here? He was brown, but now he's yellow? And they even changed the color of the fringe. Look to the right. Here's his vesture, his wrap, his clothing that he covers himself with. Look on the corners. Araba, kanaput. 4 fringes on the corners of your vesture. Look at each one. There are 5 knots. What does the 5 knots represent? The 5 books of the law? Look on the bottom. They have the regular fringe that everyone else around the world at that time wore. What set us apart from the rest of the world? That ribbon of blue, takalat, that we were supposed to put on the border of our garments. Okay, this is the closest that you can come to knowing what the color is and what you can wear as a fringe. Like I told you before, the fringe is for you to look upon. And when you look upon the fringe, you remember to keep the law. So if you don't have on your fringe, you have violated the law. But we have something that most people don't have. First, YAHUNATAN. You would say John chapter 2 verse 1. My little children, these things write I unto you, that you transgress not the law. I did. I didn't have on my fringe. And if any man transgresses the law, we have an advocate, a lawyer, a high priest, a kahan, a MASHAYAH. Where is he? He's with the Father, the judge of the universe. Who's our advocate? YAHUSHA HaMASHAYAH, the righteous. He makes all of the atonements on our behalf when, on the new moons, on the Shabbats, and on the feast days, and the Day of Atonement, he'll sprinkle the blood with his fingers 7 times before the mercy seat and 7 times on the mercy seat, when he who is seated upon the throne observes the rites carried out according to the law, he will tear that violation up that you received from the Fringe Patrol, and you will be exonerated. I have another part to this. I want to get into the conversation that came about before the accusation. Shalom.